and various techniques of CBT. And today another approach of counseling, that is humanistic approach of counseling. Humanistic approach of counseling. Okay, humanist and existential approach. So we know that humanist is based on the Carl Rogers theory of humanistic approach of counseling. Humanistic approach. Hello. Humanist and existential approach. So we know that in Carl Rogers' humanistic approach, one is the self-realization, self-acceptance. In this theory, the humanistic theory, so we know that we heard about the humanistic approach of Carl Rogers. In this humanistic approach of Carl Rogers, self-growth, self-acceptance, self-understanding, and the self-realization, the most important aspects in this humanistic theory. Self-responsibility. Okay, in this humanistic theory gives most important vital role to the individuals. We know that clients must remain responsible for choosing how they will think and how they'll act. It's all depends on the individuals. So we need to empower them as a psychologist, as a counseling psychologist, as a psychological counselors. Our main duty is to improve their level of understanding, their thought process. The empowerment of the client is the ultimate aim of humanistic approach. In this humanistic counseling, the therapist believes the strengths and weaknesses of this particular individuals. We need to improve the strengths. We need to ask them to realize what are the weaknesses. So introspection is the very important aspect of this humanistic approach. According to this humanistic approach, Carl Rogers argued that such problems, so mainly individuals always learn to do something. We make them to learn something from their life. We need to make them to learn something from their own environment. So, and also we need to make them to identify their positives and negatives. So the individual has to realize that why I am not utilizing my strengths and strengths. So in order to resolve the issue of the individuals, we need to empower them. So here, what are the strengths? Those strengths, ask them to identify those strengths. We need to ask them, ask the client, ask the individuals, ask the patient. So to identify, to introspect their own self. So here, there are three important, as we know, there are three important traits of three important techniques of humanistic approach. First one is empathy. We need to show the empathy. Means understanding from others' perspective, understanding from the client's perspective, understanding from the patient's perspective. That is the empathic understanding. We need to follow this rule of empathy, first one. Second is unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard means no conditions from our side. There is no barriers from our side, from our the therapist side, or you can say counseling psychologist side, because they are the problem. They have the problem. That is the reason they came to us. Always we need to understand this. We need to realize it. So they are in the vulnerable condition. That is the reason the patient, the individual, the person came to me. So unconditioned positive regard. Always be positive with the patients. No condition from your side. Maybe some problem, have their own severe issues. If they have severe problems only, they'll come to you. That is the reason. Better to show the empathy and unconditional positive regard in this counseling process related to the humanistic approach. Third one is that you give the responsibility of enhancement of their skills. The clients must remain responsibility for choosing how they will think and how to behave. Just we are just as a facilitator. We have to act as a facilitator. We need to facilitate them. We have to facilitate them. That is the responsibility of client or counselor in this humanistic approach. This approach is also known as, this therapy is also known as person-centered therapy. Person-centered therapy. Okay, person-centered therapy means, so what are the therapeutical procedures? What are the therapeutical these steps based on the person's abilities, based on the individual's capacities, based on the client's options. We have to show them these are the options, but choosing the options is from the person's side, from the individual side. Okay, so person-centered therapy. This person-centered therapy will be given in some stage-wise. One is the developmental stage. In this developmental stage, we need to improve the. You need to check the developmental level of the developmental stage. We need to have some sort of assessments. Based on that assessment, we can understand the developmental stage of the person. How the understanding capacity, how the cognitive levels are, how the thinking process. Then, so here, and a second level of this stage of this person-centered therapy. First one is the developmental stage. Second is the non-directive stage, emphasizing on understanding the client and communicating that understanding. So non-directing stage. So there are three important types of counseling based on how you give the counseling, how you give the instructions to the client. One is directive counseling, non-directive counseling. Third is the eclectic counseling, or you can say mixed counseling. How the instructions are given from the therapist based on that. There are three types of counseling. One is directive counseling. In this directive counseling, what are the instructions are needed? So you will instruct the person. All instructions will be given from the counselee, given by the counselor. So the counseling psychologist will give the directions of each and every directions or instructions to the client, because the client is not having any idea about the problem. He don't have any knowledge about how to resolve that issue. That is the reason all sort of directions and instructions given by the counselor. That is called directional counseling. Second is non-directional counseling. Non-directional counseling means non-directive counseling or non-directional counseling means no need of giving any directions. They know, the client or the individual, the patient know how to resolve that. But the only thing is you don't have proper understanding in the resolving process. So in that case, non-directive counseling, very minimized mistakes can be given. But overall, it comes under non-directive, no direction from the counselor side. Only some few instructions to be given to the. For example, in case of conflict resolution, so he know some options, 1, 2, 3 options. Only in resolution of conflict, in conflict management, only this company. First option, second option, third option. So from all the 3 options, what are the options we need to select? That is the problem of the client or the patient. In that case, just selection of each option and what are the merits and demerits of each option, we need to explain them. Then choosing one option from the 3 options, that is the responsibility of the client, because it's non-directive counseling, not giving any directions. Each and just explaining them what are the merits and demerits of each option. So after explanation of merits and demerits of each option, out of these 3 options, which option has to opt? That is the responsibility of the client. That is the reason this is known as the non-directive counseling, or you can non-directive stage of counseling. Then client-centered stage, focusing on the persons rather than the technique. Here in the client-centered therapy, we will focus on the persons, not on a problem. Problem is there. Why? One side is problem, other side is the person. So in order to resolve that problem, in order to get the solution to the problem, we need to empower the person. So once we empower the person, he himself solve that issue, resolve that issue. So here in client-centered therapy, in client-centered stage of focusing on the person rather than the technique. Technique is not the mandatory here. Technique is not any significance here. The person's empowerment is the most important stage in this person-centered. First one is developmental stage. Second is the non-directive stage of persons. Then client-centered. Then person-centered stage. Client-centered and person-centered stage that goes beyond individual psychotherapy and include marriage and counseling. So here in the person-centered therapy, we are like marriage counseling, even counseling related to the conflict management, problem solutions. Okay, these are all the various issues you can resolve through this person-centered therapy, because in order to resolve that issue, we are empowering the person. We are identifying the merits and demerits of the person, strengths and weaknesses of the person. We are explaining them. These are the strengths of you. Introspect yourself. And one more thing is that improving the insight of the patient, improving the insight of the individual's insight, seeing on his own self. In some cases, though they have competencies, though they have strengths, but the problem is that they won't realize it, they won't identify it, they won't recognize it. For example, if 100 rupees is there in your pocket, if you know that, if you identify, if you realize, if you identify, if you recognize, if you know that you have 500 rupees in your pocket, then only it will be possible to utilize that 500 rupees. If you don't know that, you have 500 rupees in your pocket, so how can you utilize it? How can you use it? So that is the problem. So here in this case of client-centered approach, in order to resolve the issue, we will our focus is on the person's empowerment, emphasizing on the understanding of her own self, his or her own self. Okay. So in person-centered therapy, according to Carl Roger's humanistic approach, self is the most important thing. The main concept of the main focus of this humanistic approach is the self. Self-realization, self-actualization, self-understanding, self-awareness. This is the core concept of the humanistic approach. Self. Okay. So the counseling techniques of this important this therapy, Roger's person-centered, Carl Roger's person-centered therapy. So one is the therapist must trust the client. The therapist or the counselor or counseling psychologist, he must trust that his client. He must understand the client thoroughly. He also needs to understand his strengths, so that he will explain how to utilize the strengths. And also, in order to establish the rapport, the client and the counselor's relationship is most important. Rapport build-up, rapport establishment is the initial step of this person-centered therapy. So these two persons, like client or the counselor, they both are in psychological contact, means in the same lines, in the same frequency, whatever the instructions, whatever the therapeutic procedures followed by the counselor, the same to be communicated in a proper way, in a same pitch, a same frequency to the client and the counselor. So here the person, maybe client, he is in a state of incongruence or vulnerable or anxious. The problem is that in a normal condition, the client is having all sorts of competence and strengths. But in this particular vulnerable condition, in an anxious state, incongruent state, he needs some sort of advice from the counselor. So as a counselor, the psychologist, the therapist, we need to understand his present condition of anxiety, maybe vulnerable condition, maybe incongruency in his thought process, incongruency in his understanding, incongruency in his thinking. If it is such that case, so from incongruence to congruence, the words and deeds should be in a congruence. Whatever he think, whatever he plan, that should be practicable. That should be feasible. So the plan should be executable. Plans should be implemented. Problem is that some individuals, they plan, but in case of, in the process of implementation, they face so many issues, so many problems. That is the reason they'll come to the counseling. In that case also, incongruency, if you find an incongruency, better to resolve it. So the patient is incongruency, the patient is in state of anxious, the patient may be incongruous in state of vulnerable. So the therapist always to be in a congruent or integrated or having very good relations with the client. So when the comparison comes to, when they compare their vulnerable condition to the therapist normal condition, if they compare about the incongruence level of understanding to the congruent level of therapist, so they'll come to that level with the good relations, rapport building of the therapist. Unless if the therapist maintain that sort of relations, that sort of empathetic understanding towards client, so that through his communication, so through his psychological contact of counselor to the counselee, so they will be in a position to come to that level of congruence from the congruence. So empathy is the most important here. There are three components of empathy. One is intellectual empathy, involves seeing the world from the client's perspective in an intellectual way. Client perspective is most important, not from the counselor's perspective. Client perspective means to the level of understanding, intellectual way. We need to go to that level of client's understanding, intellectual way of clients, intellectual understanding of the client. That is one important component of empathy. Empathy means from the client perspective, from the level of client understanding at the psychological understanding. And also empathy is in another component of empathy is you need to emotional attachment, you need to have some emotional attachment to the client. So if we have to go to that emotional status of the client, one is intellectual level of this client, emotional state of the client, we have to understand, we need to feel that their emotional status, their emotional condition. Accordingly, we have to respond as a counselor, a psychologist. And third one is that imaginative empathy means you visualize yourself. You need to imagine that if you are there in the condition of the clients. So these are the three important components of the empathy. One is psychological state of the counselor, that is psychological state of the client. We need to understand. Accordingly, we need to go to that level of psychological state of the client or the patient. Second is the emotional state of the Right. We have to emotionally attach the client's emotional status. We need to go to the emotional, you need to understand the emotional state of the client. Third one is that you have to visualize, you have to imagine yourself if you are there in the condition, in the emotional state, in the psychological state of client. So that accordingly you will act, accordingly you will be the counseling to the counselor. So there are three important, as I mentioned, we have to give that sort of impression to the client. So client needs some sort of warm relation from you, emotional attachment from you, psychological relations with the therapist, or you can say, or the psychological counselor. So another one is the existential. It's very minimal this thing. Normal anxiety, neurotic anxiety. So nature of anxiety, if it is anxiety, so existential. What is the problem in the present situation that we need to understand? The existential. In existential psychodynamics, so the four ultimate concerns relevant to the psychotherapy are death, freedom, isolation, meaninglessness. So these four ultimate concerns capture the nature of the reality for existentialists. Everyone who lives in confronted with the real demands or truths inherent in human existence. In turn, we are all free to choose our response to those demands and anxiety producing truths. So some truths, some existential factors we have to understand this existential psychodynamics. So here in a practical way, death is a noble and unknowable. We will die. It is only a question of them where and how. Death is simply part of the reality of life. So existentialism first dynamic is the existence. So that is one important reality that is existential. It is possible. Second is, according to the term, death is the primordial source of anxiety and is the main source of psychopathology. Psychopathological condition, the reason of the psychopathological condition is anxiety. Okay. So second is freedom. Existential theme is that people are free to choose among alternatives and therefore have a large role in shaping their decisions. A central existential concept is that although we long for freedom, we often try to escape from our freedom. Generally, freedom is considered a positive condition of life served by many individuals. Personal response is a powerful and direct implication of freedom. Personal response is a heavy burden to carry. So if when we take that responsibility, then we choose from out of some other options. There also we will face some sort of anxiety. If you take the responsibility rather than given the blaming other person. Okay. So this is another important dynamics of the psychodynamics. Then isolation. Each of
Azira Begum, mute yourself.
That is create our personal identity. As relational being, we also strive for connectedness with others. Many existential writers discuss loneliness. Is loneliness, or you can say isolation. The trouble with so many of us is that what we have sought directions, answers, values, and beliefs from the important people in our world, rather than trusting ourselves to But we can find our own answers to conflicts in our life. We self out by becoming what our being becoming rooted in their expectation and become strangers towards them. Always we better to decide the things, decide the options.
Azira Begum, mute yourself.
So we always think from the other's perspective. In order to resolve our issues, we have to see our own things. And compare with other individuals in a group, so we will be in a position to isolate ourselves. And what life? That is the question that may lead to the
Azira madam, please.
Or existential crisis.
You're disturbing all.
Life's meaning can be an organizing process. Consequently, it comes for many of us to just stay busy with the daily activities instead of grappling with life's biggest question. You won't find the solution of this. What is the meaning of life question? The question, which is my 50th year, has brought me to the notion of the suicide. It was the simplest of all questions lying in the soul of everything, from the undeveloped child to the stage. Here, meaningful life, all sorts of developmental activities, all sorts of developmental domains, whether you are achieving or not. We know there are some needs of our these individuals, like basic needs, or you can say physical needs and the psychological needs. Need fulfillment in a particular age. If you have that need fulfilled, if we achieve that need at a particular age or stage, the ultimate need is self-actualization. So if we have these, for example, that we know the hierarchy of Abraham Maslow. One is the need of love and affection. If that need is not fulfilled, if that need is not achieved in a particular age or stage, you feel like it's a meaningful, like we are not achieved that need, the need is not fulfilled in our life of particular stage. So we feel like a meaningless of our life. Okay, so in this particular humanistic approach of counseling, we have to find out what are the reasons of this vulnerable condition of anxiety. Any reason of the not fulfillment of their needs, maybe physical or psychological needs. What are the reasons of not fulfillment of the particular need in that so-and-so age? Okay, so from the client's perspective, if you think from the client's understanding, you can say understanding of empathical understanding of the client, if there is any problem of their understanding, or you can say cognitive process, better to reframing or restructuring their cognition. As I mentioned, though they have strengths, but their understanding is different. They think they don't have any positives in life. They don't have any strengths in life. In order to resolve those issues, the psychologist, as a counselor, that is our responsibility to identify their strengths. It is also our responsibility to show the strengths to the client. As I given some example also, though the person is having 500 rupees in his pocket, but he is not realizing, he is not understanding, he is not aware of that particular 500 rupees in his pocket, then how can they utilize the 500 rupees? How they spend the 500 rupees? So due to their misunderstanding of their abilities, due to not realizing of their own abilities, so maybe some misunderstanding. That means their thought process not in a systematic way, proper way. That is the way, that is the reason, restructuring or reframing of their understanding. So this is also one important technique in the counseling. Okay. So humanistic and existential approach of counseling. Now we will move to the counseling for various groups. First one is counseling for the special groups, counseling for substance abuse. Special groups means first one is the substance abuse. Substance abuse, whatever the substance that is used by this particular individual client, maybe that may be smoking, that may be alcohol, that substance may be some other drugs. Okay. So here in this substance use, the counseling for substance use of any type, like I already mentioned, maybe cigarette smoking, maybe alcohol, some sort of coffin like cocaine, then inhalants, nicotine, and sedatives. This all comes under the various substances. In substances use, we have various categories of individuals. One is beneficial use. Beneficial use means use that substances has positive health. If they use that substance for limited purpose, limited quantity, that is for this positive health of the individuals. Or for example, if they want to maintain some status in society, so by advising of any doctor, any professionals, if they use, that is comes under the beneficial use. For example, medical pharmaceuticals like coffee to increase the alertness, moderate consumption of some sort of red wine, and some sort of medicines with the help of doctors or the professionals. They'll get the advice, from the doctors and the professionals. They will use this sort of substances like medicines or like some sort of pharmaceuticals like coffee, tea, or red wine for their health benefits. That is called beneficial use. Then some substances they use in a non-problematic mode of use, or you can say casual use, for recreational activities, casual or other use that has negligible health this impact. The impact will be very minimal on their health or on the society. It won't give any negative impact on their health or societal effects. That is the non-problematic use. First one is the, depends on the quantity of utilizing. So these are the three important categories. One is the beneficial use for the benefits of their health, for the benefits of their well-being. Some limited quantity of these substances they will use, that is known as the beneficial use. Second is the casual or non-problematic use, only for recreational purposes on casual mode. For other use, the negligible quantity of these substances, if they use, that is known as the non-problematic use. Problematic use that begins to have negative consequences for individuals, friends, family, society. Like some substances, the individual use some substances which impact on the society, which negative adverse, or you can say adverse impact on the family, negative impact on the society and the friends. This is a problematic use. Why means, for example, the person is having some 10,000 of for his monthly income. If he spend 6,000 to 7,000 only on his alcohol or any other substances, what happens? Whatever the remaining, only 4,000 rupees he will remaining out of 10,000 rupees. If the person spent 7,000 or 6,000 only on consumption of alcohol or any other drugs, only rest of the 4,000 rupees he managed with the family. How it is possible to manage with this 4,000 or 5,000 rupees per month? Okay, so this is the financial consequence, negative impact of his financial management due to his intake of alcohol or any other substance. That is one important adverse impact on the financial aspects. Adverse impact on the family. Okay, this heavy intake of substance gives some sort of negative impact on the family members. First one is the family, that is financial aspect, then family members. Third one is the societal impact. So which is misbehaved the other members in the society, other members in the group, other members in the neighborhood people. So the society also having some negative impact of his problematic use of drugs or alcohol or any other substance. Okay, some cases, in some examples, some cases, if the person is having habit of taking alcohol, for example, he is a driver, his profession is a driving profession. So definitely that driving will be impaired driving due to his impaired driving, due to the problem of driving. Then the society or the others will definitely adverse impact will be there on the others. So this is the problematic use. First the use is beneficial use of substance. Second is casual or non-problematic use of substances. Third one is the problematic use of, because of his usage of drugs or other substance, the problems will be arranged in his family, in his health condition, his financial status, or in his society. That is known as the problematic use. Fourth one is the chronic dependence. Chronic dependence means use that has become habitual and compulsive despite negative and social effects. Despite of negative impact, despite of all these various issues, still he will or she will be dependent only on that particular substance. This is called chronic dependence. They won't bother about the consequences. Directly after getting from bed, directly will go to the wine shops. Chronic, they are dependent only on the particular substance. That is known as the chronic dependent. Okay. So one is there are different categories of how the substance abuse depending on their quantity of the substance use. There are some categories. One is non-use. The persons who are not using this substance is called non-use. Second is moderate use. Moderate use is a non-problematic use. And heavy use, moderate problematic. Heavy use, serious problem. Dependence. So these are the various categories of using substances. Then how to counsel these persons having this type of substance issues. One is that we need to explain the various consequences to their problem. What are the consequences they are supposed to face by using this substance for months together or years together? Got it? So here, one is the individualized counseling is needed in this case. So what are the financial issues, the consequences of financial aspects, the consequences of legal issues, the consequences of their health, the consequences means negative consequences, that is adverse consequences by their act, by their using of substances. We have to explain the counseling. Financial negative consequence on the financial aspects, negative consequence on the family relations, negative consequence on the societal relations, negative consequence on the job place, workplace. Okay, These are all the various the physical health and psychological health. So in some cases, if the intake of their drugs, intake of their substance is beyond the control, so what happens initially, the health issues may be arise. Later on stages, maybe psychological issues. Basically, the health may be it is some sort of adverse impact on the health. Same thing is continuing for years together, months together. What happens? Slowly, there's the psychological issues may be sorted. Like hallucinations. By taking heavy drug or heavy intake of substances, initially the health condition will be deteriorated. Slowly, physical health will be deteriorated initially. Then slowly, psychological health means they can't focus on any activity. Their concentration, their memory will be impaired. Then slowly, what happens? Their acute psychological issue they have to face, like hallucination, delusions, like psychosis, neurosis. So these are the various psychological, physical, and emotional, social adverse consequences they have to face. Here, ABC model can again, for example, in previous this thing, CRT, cognitive restructuring. ABC model is also one important techniques to address these issues of substance abuse. Okay, so ABC model means, for example, if they believe some individuals, especially in this daily laborer, they believe that, they feel that, they think that by taking some quantity of alcohol or any other drug, they will have some sort of relaxation. But that is their belief system. Based on their belief system, they will start taking the alcohol or any other substance or drugs. They believe that their believing is that by doing this habit, by taking this alcohol, by consuming the alcohol, they will get some best organization. That is the reason they will start the taking of their substance. So here, belief system is not a positive way. Belief system is wrong. Negative belief system. Why? Because if they want really, if they want some sort of relaxation, some sort of rest, some sort of recreation, they can spend with the family members after completion of their duty after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Directly, if they come to the family, if you spend some time to the family members, 1 or 2 hours time on any recreational activities, they will definitely get some sort of relaxation, some sort of rest, some sort of relief from their work burden. Instead of believing in this, wrongly they believe, negatively they believe. So based on their negative belief system, they will start the activity of taking alcohol or drugs. So here, A is the activity, B is the belief system, C is the consequences. Consequences, the negative consequence. Negative belief system leads negative activities that both leaves negative consequence on health, financial, societal, and the family. So this is ABC model we can apply here in this case of substance abuse. We need to restructuring the thought process. If the belief system is in the negative way, you have to convert, you have to modify it to the positive belief system. So the positive belief system leads to positive activities, leads to positive consequences. So this is the way we have to give the counseling to the persons who are having this type of substance abuse. There are some counseling agencies, outpatient counseling agencies. So outpatient way of outpatient, when they admitted as the inpatient, that is one type of counseling, that is inpatient counseling, providing some sort of programs, assistance programs of inpatient, like group counseling, and with the help of some pharmaceutical help, like medicines, giving medicines initial stage, slowly giving counseling, individual counseling, as well as the group counseling that is the services provided to the patient if they are admitted in the hospital as an inpatient. Second is outpatient counseling agencies. Outpatient counseling agencies also available. So inpatient, outpatient, and patients for alcohol dependence. These are the different type of patients. Counseling for alcohol dependence is not much at ease. It is very toughest task. So here, depot establishment is the main task. It's the toughest task. They won't cooperate with the therapist if they are dependent. Dependent means their life, their daily activities, their lifestyle, their routines, totally depending on the substance. What are the substance they use? That is called alcohol dependent. For example, dependence, alcohol dependency. They are depending only on the alcohol. Okay. So in that cases, counseling for the alcohol dependency or any substance abuse dependency, we have to be very careful. Sudden reducing of the quantity of this alcohol, it leads to some sort of withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal symptoms mean if they stop suddenly, these people are already depending on the alcohol, or these people are already depending on the any other substance. Suddenly, if they stop consuming these type of substances, so certain withdrawal symptoms. That symptoms may be shivering, maybe some sort of these health issues. Okay, and maybe in some cases major health issues may be possible. So in that case of this alcohol dependency or dependence of any other drugs, so along with the medical support, along with the medicines or I can say medications, better to provide the counseling with the help of the client as well as the caregivers of the client. Okay. So because already they are dependent, that is the reason once if they stop suddenly, so that will be leads some sort of adverse consequences like withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal symptoms, as I mentioned, shivering, dry mouth, then maybe some major health issues may be changed. In that case, it's only better to take all the precautions before going to the counseling in these cases. Okay. Any doubt in this? So in any situation, as I mentioned, in any case, like maybe the substance abuse, maybe the another type of these groups. If it is a group counseling, so we form a group of same issue related to the client. For example, in an inpatient inpatient this type of establishments, recreational activities, along with rehabilitation services. Rehabilitation services means rehabilitation. So not only it is reducing the intake of their alcohol or any other drugs, rehabilitation also needed. So we need to explain them what are the benefits of not use these drugs. What are the benefits of reducing the quantity of this alcohol or any other substance? For example, if they spent 7,000 rupees per month in this particular, that is alcohol or any other substance, if they stop consuming of this alcohol, so 7,000 rupees they will be in a position to save in a month. For example, 5,000 rupees they spent on in a month. We better to show the calculation of their this income. Out of 10,000, if they spend 5,000 rupees, yearly 60,000 rupees they are spending only on the consuming of this alcohol or any substance. For example, their habit is from 5 years or 6 years. Just tell them nearly 3 lakhs they spend on this particular substance. So by stopping of this particular substance, they will be in a position to save 5,000 rupees per month and nearly 60,000 rupees per year. This amount, whatever the amount is saved by the client and the person. So ask them to utilize in a meaningful way, maybe for their children, or maybe for their any other plans. So this is the way individualized planning, individualized counseling. In group counseling, some common issues are in the group counseling that may be possible in the group counseling. In an inpatient setups, in a recreational it is rehabilitation services, if it is a possibility of that is group counseling, better to go for the group counseling. And individualized issues are there, better to give the counseling in an individual manner. Like as I mentioned, their financial status, their health condition, their age, their family status, individualized planning. So better to provide individualized counseling to this particular individuals. So financial consequence, health conditions also we need to explain. By taking heavy intake of these substance, what happens, what is the negative consequence on the health? If their health is damaged, health is deteriorated, maybe physical health or psychological health, whatever the situation of the family members. School-going children are there in the family, small children are there. So how they manage? So these consequences we need to show, we need to discuss in a deeper manner. And if they both sides, positive side and negative these consequences, both we need to discuss it. If they continuing the same situation, taking of alcohol or any other substance, what are the present conditions? So the deterioration of their health, what are the future consequences of negative aspect? Those things we need to show them empathetically, better to understand them in the particular way. If they stop taking of these substances, what are the benefits they'll get? Like financial benefits, benefits of their family. So they'll get reputation. What are the reputation loss from the family members or the societal job place? So they will get the reputation. So they will maintain that very good relationship. They stop there taking off alcohol and other things. So these are all the various aspects we better to explain in a deeper manner in an individualized counseling, so that they will realize and they will understand how to. So in this case also, some problem may be highlighted even after stopping of taking this alcohol or any other things, any other substances. So relapse management means once they stop, again there are some chances of it is repeating again. So relapse techniques, relapse management. So prevention of relapse and repeating the same thing again after some days or some months. So in that case also better to provide counseling. Okay. Then counseling for patients with the chronic illness. So in the chronic illness, maybe some sort of chronic illness means like this, like a medical crisis, some problem related to the sudden onset of disability and disease-related health disasters. So in this chronic illness means, for example, sudden this onset of disability means due to some accidents or some sort of sudden issues. Sudden disability, maybe chances of sudden disability in individuals. Okay, so sudden onset of disability is one important area of providing counseling. So in that particular case, so counseling is needed to address their emotional status, to address their vulnerable conditions, to address their anxiety of their own life and life of their family members. Then health related, disease related health issues, some health issues related to the disease like AIDS, HIV/AIDS, or maybe some other serious issues like cancer and other things. Like third one is sensor impairment. Sensor impairment due to some accidents, maybe sensory organs may not be functioning in their proper way. So in that sensory impairment and neurological and neuromuscular disabilities also, these type of problems may be faced in individuals. So here, one is that there are different levels of giving counseling in this case of chronic illness. One is managing with medical crisis. So in such cases, how to manage with the medical crisis, how to manage the medical expenditure, how to manage with the other expenses related to the professionals, medical professionals. That is one sort of managing medical crisis. In that managing medical crisis also, we have to provide proper counseling to the client who are having chronic illness. Second is that controlling the symptoms. One is medical crisis. In case of medical crisis, so counseling is needed. Second is controlling the symptoms, how to control the symptoms. For example, after the assessment of, for example, like cerebral palsy or ADHD or autism, any other severe case of Down syndrome, maybe child-related cases, maybe the elder-related case of cancer, like that. So controlling the symptoms is one important area. Okay, once they understand this, these are the symptoms of so on so that is disease, so on symptoms of like cancer, so on symptoms of like autism or any other disability. So one important area of giving counseling is medical crisis. If the medical crisis are arising, how to provide the counseling to that individuals or the family members or the caregivers. Second is the how to control the symptoms. In controlling symptoms also, we have to provide certain type of counseling skills, counseling techniques. Okay. For example, if it is in a disability area, or you can say if it is any problem of ADHD symptoms, how to control the symptoms of ADHD. In that case, how to control the symptoms of autism. So in that case, better to give counseling in order to reduce the symptoms of control the symptoms of that particular disease. Okay. So then coping with an uncertain prognosis. Some sort of conditions will be like that condition, or we can say symptoms maybe, the conditions may be vary on the unpredictability. So we can't predict what happens in the future course. We can't assume, we can't even imagine what happens in the next month, what happens next week, what happens next few days. That is coping uncertain prognosis. Some issues will be like that. Some these health issues will be like that. So prognosis you can't even imagine. You can assume. So in that case, coping strategies is needed with an uncertain prognosis. Some sort of strategies to cope up with the situation. What are the situation arise in the future course of time? So in that case also counseling. Another one is avoiding or adjusting to social isolation. After knowing their conditions, after sudden having some sort of sudden disability, they will they won't mingle with other group members in the society or maybe in the family also. So adjusting the social structures, family structures, it's very toughest task. After knowing about their these severe health issues, they won't mingle. They avoid to adjust with the family members. They avoid to adjust with, they avoid to mingle with the society. In that case also, we have to provide some counseling related to their emotional attachment, adjustment issues. And for each and every this counseling process, better to setting a concrete goals. That goals may be long-term goals, some goals may be the short-term goals. In order to reduce their anxiety, in order to reduce their tension, in order to reduce their depressive conditions, in order to reduce their stressful condition of these people having chronic illness, better to provide counseling, depends on their issue. And some cases, chronic illness in children and adolescents. Okay, some sort of diabetics, insulin dependent diabetic. Okay, that is some individuals, even in some cases of children also, they're depending on their insulins. So this case, in this case, also counseling is needed. And impaired, that is social relationship with the peers and siblings. Due to their present condition, especially children and adolescents, they won't mingle with other peer groups because of their disability, due to their impaired these problematic conditions of the physical area as well as the psychological conditions. So how to manage these children? That is also one important area of counseling. So they won't mingle with other children in the group. They want maybe the other people also, the other children also won't allow them to mingle with them. For example, any problem of ADHD or any other problem of Down syndrome, by seeing the particular child, it is easily they can understand, they can identify, they can easily know, you can understand this problem of some issue of some problem of the children. The children is having some sort of, that is the reason they won't allow this particular child to the group. These group members, other children in the classroom, other children in the school, other children in the neighborhood, other children in the peer group, if they won't allow this child to interact or you can contact them, to mingle with them, that itself is a problem. So isolating from the other side, isolating from the patient side. Again, there is a problem of adjustment, family adjustment, societal adjustment. So if this is the case, there also not only the counseling to the child, counseling to the caregivers or the parents also, in some cases, counseling to the teachers, that is also needed. For example, the problem of 6-year child. So after observing his normal behavior, the parents took their child to the specialist like psychologist or any medical professionals. After diagnosing of his condition, it is confirmed that problem of some sort of autism, some sort of any other major issue like Down syndrome, like this. So if the test results after completion of their assessment, scoring, and conclusions, if they diagnose that this problem of child is having this problem of like autism or neither, immediately after knowing, even after the assessment of IQ also, if the IQ is below normal, of course below normal is a simple issue. If the problem is having some sort of moderate or severe issues or profound issues, immediately after knowing that their child's problem or the problem of the children. So here, one important thing we need to observe is the condition of the parents first, then children's case. In these both sides, parental counseling to address the stressful condition of the parents. And also we have to provide the counseling to the child and the future consequences he has to face as an individual, as a family member, as the student in the classroom. So these are the future consequences we need to assume, we need to imagine, we have to explain all these things to the caregivers as well as the individuals. In some cases, caregivers counseling means caregivers burnout, caregivers burden, and caregivers problem of their self-care. For example, if the child is having some problem, in order to provide services to the child, the caregivers, they forget about their self, they forget about their health issues, they forget about their other burdens, they forget about their self-care also. One is caregivers burden by providing all the various facilities to the child or the patient or the individual in the family. That is one important financial burdens, maybe other burdens related to their time spending, burdens related to their other siblings in the family. These are all related to the caregiver's burden, number one. And second is self-care of the caregiver. Because only the person in the family is only the caregiver in the family to provide the various services and the facilities to the client or the patient. If he or she forget about his self-care, forget about his health, forget about his safety, least bother about his health condition, what happens? If there is any problem arising to the caregivers, who will look after that particular person, the child? So caregiver self-care also one important aspect. Then caregivers burden, then caregivers burnout. Up to some extent, the caregivers will have patience. Then after, beyond that control, beyond that adjustment capabilities, what happens? So if the caregiver is having some very health issues, the overall burden of the child, it will be disturbed. So we need to provide self-care services to the caregiver, and if there is any caregiver burden, that also we have to address. If there is any burnout condition of the caregiver, that also we have to, in that case also we have to provide counseling. Then if there is any problem of coping strategies, coping skills, the caregivers, then support from the society. Support from the society also needed in the caregivers cases. Okay, support that are available in the society, maybe the non-governmental services, facilities, other governmental facilities that are available to the caregivers. Support services available for chronic illness patients as well as the caregivers. Those things also we have to explain in our counseling procedures to the caregivers. Okay, then after reducing the symptoms, after addressing the symptoms of any issue, maybe medical or psychological issues, if they are the chances of normalization, those things also we have to expect. Client as well as the caregivers. Okay, that's all about the counseling to the patients who are having chronic illness or any disabilities. Okay. Any doubts? Okay, then I am concluding here. Then we have another next two classes. Rest of the topics will complete in the next two classes. Next class.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.